Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, tonight we're going to talk about something I've been asked a lot. But anytime I'm asked about it, it's very vague and I don't really know what people want to hear because it's a huge topic. And then a couple days ago, I got a question that kind of brought it all into focus. Somebody said they were trying to find it in the Constitution and couldn't. I bet you couldn't because it's not there. So tonight we're going to talk about the separation of church and state. It's a philosophical concept. It's a concept of jurisprudence. It's not a constitutional one overtly. It's implied. It is implied, but it's not overtly stated anywhere in the Constitution. They didn't think they needed to. At the time, the people who wrote the Constitution, it was a given. It was just accepted. The United States was going to be a secular nation. It's enshrined in a way in the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or the free exercise thereof. Now, if you read the debate over how that was going to be phrased, it becomes very, very clear. No law in favor or against. So nobody could be forced to participate in a religious activity, and Congress couldn't stop you from participating in a religious activity. So what it meant, it's a real simple concept. When people say the separation of church and state, especially the Supreme Court, they're normally referring to Jefferson's letter to some Baptists. And that's what gets cited. However, almost all of our founders used this phrase in one way or another. Some of them said there's a wall between church and state. Some said there's a hedge. Madison used it. Everybody used it. The U.S. was designed to be a secular nation. No law in favor or against any religion. That was the idea. When you tell people this, they will often say, the United States was founded as a Christian nation. Okay, shortly after the Constitution was written and adopted, so shortly after that the same people were still around, a treaty was adopted. We've learned in other videos, treaties are law. The Supremacy Clause of the Constitution dictates that. So anything that's in a treaty is U.S. law. In 1797, the United States signed a treaty with Tripoli. Article 11 states, as the government of the United States of America is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion. So, the people who wrote the Constitution were around when this came into being. It wasn't. The idea that the United States was supposed to be a Christian nation is demonstrably false. It's wrong. It's not true. It was supposed to be secular. Does that mean that our founders weren't Christians? No. Some of them were. Some were atheists. Some were deists. What it means is they understood the dangers of theocracy, and they didn't want it. They wanted nothing to do with it. So, how does this apply to our hot button issues of today? Kids praying in schools. Can children pray at school? Absolutely. Can a teacher lead them? No. What if the teacher's off, doing it on their off time? Yeah, if it's voluntary on the student's part. If it's voluntary, there's nothing stopping a school from allowing a priest to come in, as long as they do it for every religion in every denomination. And it's completely voluntary. That's the key part. It has to be free of coercion. What about, let's see, Ten Commandment monuments at courthouses? intent matters there. If it's the Ten Commandments next to the Code of Hammurabi, it's a display of jurisprudence history, no big deal. If it's a religious monument out front, trying to show that it's a Christian nation, well, then it's an issue because you're violating the Constitution. And oddly enough, depending on your doctrine, you're probably also violating the Ten Commandments. You might want to read those. What about people getting married? Legally, if you can enter into a contract, you should be able to get married. Period. Full stop. That should be the end of the qualifications right there. Now, does that mean that the government can force the first self-righteous church of wherever to marry people it doesn't want to? No. No law for or against. Well, what if you're a clerk and your sincerely held religious beliefs say that you think these people shouldn't get married? You don't have to issue them a marriage license because you're religious freedom. Nope. When you are working for the government as an agent of government, you have no religious freedom. The wall is up. Separation of church and state. What about people who want to use their religious beliefs as an excuse to not cater to certain people? That's where it gets tricky. Government cannot force people to abandon their religious principles in a private setting. However, government can regulate public accommodations. So that constitutionally, that's a gray area. It hasn't really been decided. There's been a few cases about it, but it's not concrete yet. At the end of the day, I think it'll probably go back to what's in the Civil Rights Act. What's defined as a public accommodation there will have to be available to everybody, regardless of your sincerely held religious beliefs. What about in God we trust on our money? That's one I go back and forth on. It's not really enforcing a religion on anybody. It's very generic. It doesn't require anything of you. I think the founders would probably look at that and be like, that's not really what we wanted, but we're not going to be real mad about it. I personally like what was on our first coin, the first coin the U.S. put into circulation. It didn't say, "In God we trust." It didn't say, "E pluribus unum." It summed up the entire Bill of Rights. Because the entire Bill of Rights really, it's your right to be left alone. It's really what it boils down to. And that coin, the Franklin cent, well, it just said, "Mind your business." Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.